Hey, what's up guys, Ben here, welcome back to another video on my channel FilmFanatic, and today I'm reviewing Red Sparrow. After being injured during a performance, a Russian ballerina called Dominika, played by Jennifer Lawrence, is recruited by her shady uncle Vanya, who works for the government, to be part of some government agency. She's sent to the Sparrow program where they're mentally broken down and are taught how to use their body to seduce their targets. She's sent on a mission to seduce the American government agent, played by Joel Edgerton, and they end up getting wrapped in a story of deception and lies and conspiracy theories, and it all gets wrapped into one spy thriller. Now that is Red Sparrow in a nutshell. Now when they did the press release of the movie, there was a note from the director just saying, can everyone not tell anybody the twists, respect the movie. And so that's why I'm going to be pretty vague, and there's going to be no spoilers in the video, so don't worry if you haven't seen it. Although it has been out for quite a while, so you probably should have seen it by now. So let's start with the good. Jennifer Lawrence is fantastic in pretty much everything she does nowadays. She showed a great range of characters, playing Mystique in X-Men, to Joy in Joy, Silver Linings Playbook, Red Sparrow. There's a good mix and a good range there. Now her character's pretty complicated and hard to follow, so I can kind of understand if people don't fully relate to the character or feel involved. And that was one of the issues I had with her. Her performance was fantastic, but this is when it mirrors to a bad point, where I don't know if it was the writing, or I haven't read the book, maybe it was the way the character's portrayed in the book, but I just found the character really hard to understand, and because you didn't always understand what was going on in her head, you couldn't fully relate to the character and you didn't really feel involved in what was happening. Again, that's nothing to do with Jennifer Lawrence's performance, I think it's just the way the character was written. Now as I said, the movie's a pretty mixed bag for me. The first kind of 2/3 of the movie I found really hard to get through. It dragged, and it's a very, very long film. I think it's over 2.5 hours, I'm pretty sure. It's a very long film and it felt like it, especially for that first 2/3. Now at the start, when you're propelled into this government world, it's pretty interesting. You have her being the ballerina, she's obviously a great ballerina, and then after an injury she gets thrown into this government agency. And it was at this point where it started to really slow down. Now usually training sequences are where you show a character getting trained to be the character you see later in the movie. It's always really exciting and exhilarating, but it was awkward and uncomfortable during these moments. Now like I said, they're taught to use their body to seduce their targets, and so that leads to some very awkward scenes. There's a lot of moments within this sequence and throughout the whole movie where the audience is made to feel uncomfortable. Now if that was deliberate, then it worked, fair enough, but I have a funny feeling that it wasn't deliberate to make it that uncomfortable. There's a lot of nudity in the movie, and now listen, hats off to Jennifer Lawrence and all the other actors who took part in this. I don't know, but I assume it would obviously be very uncomfortable to try and do those kind of scenes, especially the ones that are in this movie. But hats off to them, they did it. It worked for the story, but again, like I said, it is a rather uncomfortable moment. Another good point, something they did really, really well, was all these tense moments. Now like I said, the first 2/3 are quite slow. However, when you get to that final third of the movie, when it just feels like a really, really good kind of classic noir spy thriller, this is when all these tense moments seem to come back to back. So there's a moment where she's breaking into her roommate's room in their apartment, and the roommate's coming up the elevator, coming in the door, and you don't know if she's going to get out in time or she's going to get caught. It's a great build of tension, and the soundtrack, the score that goes with this, really adds to this. And so you're kind of stuck in this. You kind of want the government to find out because she's doing something bad, but at the same time you're rooting for the character, so it's very tense, and they're really good at creating these moments. They really are, and that's something I had to give hats off to the director to. It's something that makes the film feel a little bit more enjoyable. It stops it being kind of slow and groggy, and it makes you involved more. I felt tense watching it. I got excited, wondering if she would get caught or what would happen. It's these little moments that make the film not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Now let's go over to the bad points. Now I think the movie was doing shock for shock's sake. I mean, you have, like I said, all the nudity, these very graphic scenes. It seemed very much that they were saying, look what we can do, look how we can make you uncomfortable, and it felt forced at times. There were moments where I don't think we're needed. We've seen Jennifer Lawrence getting mentally broken down, we've seen her getting tortured, we've seen all this. We see that she's fitting to this Red Sparrow mold that they're forming. Why do we need to see all these really graphic, aggressive, sexual scenes? It's not necessarily needed. Yes, it makes you feel sorry for the character, so I can kind of see why they did it, but like I said, at the same time, it's very uncomfortable, and I think they did a lot of the ones shock for shock's sake. I don't think I would watch it again. I don't think I would give it a second viewing because of these moments. I think some graphic things add to story and make it more interesting. I think of American Psycho, for example. All the graphic things in that movie are character driven. They make you want to watch it more, they get you more involved in the story, but to this, it just seemed slightly off, and I probably wouldn't give it a second viewing. Overall, I thought Red Sparrow was okay. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It had some really good moments, and it had some really bad moments. Overall, I think the acting was great, the direction was great, and the score was fantastic, one of the best the guy's done, but I just feel that it lacked in a lot of character stories. And so because of that, I can't really give it a high rating, but because of the great tense moments, I can't really give it a low rating. So I'm going to give it a solid 6, a 6 out of 10. I think that's a fair thing to say. Like I said, it wasn't fantastic, or I don't think I would class it as good, but it wasn't horrible, it wasn't a terrible movie. So I think a solid 6 is a fair assumption. Just before I go, guys, I do need to talk about a podcast I've been listening to recently, and it's great. It's done by a guy called Chris Moffat. It's on a lot of apps. It was on Facebook. I'll link it on my Twitter as well if you follow it. There's a link in the description. I'll put a link to the actual podcast itself in the description as well. They talk everything films, everything TV, wrestling, everything you can think of. It's all in this podcast, and they're great little kind of 45-minute episodes, 45 to an hour episodes, so they're good just to listen to when you're travelling around. It's called the Good Bit Podcast. Like I said, there'll be a link to it in the description. I would definitely check it out. Thanks you very much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy, go ahead and leave a like rating down below. I really do appreciate it. If you agree or disagree with anything I've said, go ahead and leave it in the comments along with your out of 10 rating, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss some FilmFanatic content. I'll see you next time, guys. Take care. Badoosh.
I quite enjoyed Red Sparrow. I thought it was really good. I thought the story was a bit complex, a bit too complex a lot of the time, but I would give Red Sparrow a 6 out of 10.